Maqasidic Tafsir.
Where should I begin when I'm starting at the end? Pursuing the higher aim, learning the meaning of every page. Where should I begin when I'm starting at the end?
Assalamu alaikum. Sunnahfollowers presents a new class, the Maqasidic Tafsir, being taught and brought to you by Ustada Layla Nashiba. Please stay tuned, streaming on all major platforms, right here on channel Sunnahfollowers.
Alhamdulillah, wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our series, the Maqasidic Tafsir. This is our series based on another book written by Sheikh Karim Abu Zaid for the new Shahadas. This is how the book looks. It's the green one. And you can get it on Amazon for $19.99. This is volume 1. We're going to try to go through the entire series he has put together. But this is volume 1. And with that said, let me just put the PowerPoint up on the screen so we can dive right into this, okay? Because I know some of you have to go to work too. Yeah, I know. Hold on. Oh, wait a minute. If I find out that those little idiots, okay. Okay, here I come now. Let's try it again. There. Can you see it now? Inshallah, you guys can see it. Okay, there we are. Let me make it larger. Okay, this is pages. This is the Maqasidic Tafsir, and tonight we'll be covering pages 97 through 99 of the book, and we're going to speak about how the chapters of the Quran, or how the surahs of the Quran got their name. And this is a question. Sister Amy, didn't you ask this question last week? And I told you to hold off for today. Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about that. We spoke about the order of the chapters. We talked about how did the Quran get in the order in which it's in. In fact, I have a quiz about that. Let's go to the first question here. The last time we met for this class, which was last week, we spoke about the science of abrogation. We talked about how when it comes to interpreting the Quran or translating the Quran or clarifying the verses of the Quran, it's the same science that we use with the hadiths. It's different, and it's not just one science that we used. We used the science of analyzation. That means we analyze each sentence, each word, the meaning, and break it down. We also use the science of history, biography. You have to know the history of Islam. And the only way you're going to learn the history of Islam is by learning the biography of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every verse that was sent down except for several. There's only several verses that are exempt from that. But the other verses of the Quran were sent down for a reason. You have to know who, what, where, when, why. What happened to make Allah say this? Where did it happen? When did it happen? You have to know the science of era, the science of whether the surah is a Mecca surah or a Madani surah. You have to know the science of the linguistics of the Quran, of Arabic, the linguistic of Arabic, the Arabic language. That's a science too. And also last week we spoke about the science of abrogation. You have to know the science of abrogation. So this is my question for you. What is the science of abrogation, and why is it important for an interpreter to know? Who can remember what is the science of abrogation, and why is it important to know?
Well, it's important to know because you could be talking about something that's no longer correct at this time. But as far as the science goes, I can't remember.
Okay, anybody want to help her? She really gave the answer.
Yeah, and then too, it's important so you know the abrogation is that it was abrogated, so you won't make it seem like Allah has forgot something, because He didn't forget anything when it comes down to this religion. And that's the only thing I wanted to add it to my law. And then what was the other question? I know you said what was the ruling of it?
What is the science of abrogation, and why is it important? So what is it? When we say that something's abrogated in the Quran, what are we saying?
Oh, that's something that Allah has. So it's 3 different parts. So one of the parts is basically if Allah had ruled something, then He took it away for whatever reason, that maybe the your strength has became your faith has become stronger. And then another reason was because it was the regular rule, but then it was lifted away. That's what I forgot to say. And
Good job.
For your faith. And then another one, it was still in the ruling, but that ruling does not come into effect unless it's a war or something. And I forgot the second one. So
that's it. You gave all 3. Ones, but you gave all 3. Good job. Good job, Mina. That was excellent. Good job. The science of abrogation. These are verses of the Quran that may have been canceled out. That words that are commands that Allah may have imposed, but then He canceled them. Or commands that Allah gave, and then later, for some reason, He lifted it. He lifted it. Or a command that's just not in effect right now because you're not in that scenario. So that's the science of abrogation. And you're going to have to know as an interpreter which verses of the Quran were abrogated, and why. The same with the Quran, with the hadith. There's a lot of hadiths in Imam Muslim's collection that were abrogated. For example, the hadith about standing, eating while standing, and drinking while standing. In the beginning of Islam, the Prophet did forbid it, but it was later canceled out. Also fasting, not fasting on Saturdays and Sundays. That was a command in the beginning, then it was later canceled out. So there's abrogated verses of the Quran, and there's abrogated verses of the hadiths. It's important to know what they are, or like she said, you can be given misinformation or information that's not in effect now, or information that was canceled out. A great example of the Quran is how for the Jews, Allah had forbidden, had held them accountable for their thoughts. When that verse came down, the companions became so afraid. They said, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, it's hard for us to not, think bad thoughts. We pray that Allah doesn't punish us for the thoughts that we have." And Allah heard their supplication, and He abrogated that. He canceled that out. So now we're not held accountable for the evil thoughts we have. We're only held accountable if we act them out. So the science of abrogation is that, and it's very important for the interpreter of a hadith or the Quran to know that. And that brings us to the next question. What is the science of connectivity? We spoke about this also last week. As you guys can see, a lot of sciences are used with the Quran and the hadiths too. And like I said, the hadiths, we use the same science. What is the science of connectivity, and why is it important for an interpreter to know?
Because there's more than one place where that situation can be explained, like how Jamali was talking about marriage, where it was over here in Baka, then it was over here in this, like that.
Okay, that's why it's important. Good job. And what is it? What is the science of connectivity?
It's when you're connecting the different verses with each other.
Exactly. It's when you connect, the verses connect. You have to, the scholars or the interpreters of the Quran and the Hadith as well. You have to know the connectivity. Like I was giving you guys in my lecture yesterday in my class, you know, when you read these Hadiths, you just can't just pick up Sahih Bukhari and start reading and thinking, oh, this is, no, a lot of those, in fact, most all of those Hadiths connect. You have to know what they connect to. You have to know the who, what, where, when, why. The prophet wasn't just speaking to himself. Something happened to make him say what he said. Something happened to make him do what he did. And he didn't speak in just one word or one sentence. What was the whole sentence? What was the topic? What happened? Was this a khutbah? Most of those hadiths are part of long khutbahs. Okay? So you have to know the connectivity, how they connect to each other. You will find one hadith here or one verse of the Quran speaking about marriage here. Then in another 3 chapters later, another verse. And 5 chapters later, another verse. So you have to know how to connect the dots so you can give a full explanation as to what Allah is saying or what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying. And this is where we lose it. Because most people today don't know the science of connectivity. Because this is a very hard process. You have to really, it's memorization. And boy, you got to start young with that. That's how a lot of hadiths and verses of the Quran get misconstrued. Okay. Next question. This is the last one, I think, too. Abrogations of a verse reflects mistakes and contradictions of the verses of the Quran. Is that true or false? Where's my true or false at? This is a true or false question, guys. I guess it didn't. Remember I told y'all I hit a button on my PowerPoint. It took off my true and false. So is this statement true or false? Abrogations of a verse reflects mistakes and contradictions of the verses of the Quran. Is that true or false?
That's false. Abrogation does not contradict anything, and it's never a mistake.
Does anybody disagree with her answer? Does anyone disagree? MashaAllah, good job. This is false. But believe it or not, there's a lot of Muslims out there who belong to these deviant sects who say that. They'll say that the abrogations reflects contradictions. They do the same with the hadiths. Those people that call themselves Quran aloners, they don't believe in the hadiths. They claim that the hadiths contradict each other because of abrogations. Because the Prophet abrogated the command to not fast on Saturdays and Sundays, this shows contradiction. That's how these people say, and this is not true. So since that's not true, what about this? Abrogations show patterns of growth of the community in which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived. Is that true or false? Abrogations show the growth of the people in which the Prophet Muhammad was sent to. Is that statement true or false?
True.
MashaAllah, this is true. So no, they don't show contradictions. They show that the people have grew. So that's why Allah would cancel out an order. He would cancel out a command. As your faith, as they became stronger and stronger in their iman, I can now do away with this, do away with that. Okay? They show the growth of the people in their iman. It doesn't show no contradiction. So that's what we spoke about last week. And today, let me make this bigger for you guys too, and take my picture and make it smaller. So today we're going to continue this by speaking about the chapters of the Quran. We already talked about how the chapters or the surahs of the Quran were put in the order that they're in through the revelation, during the time of the prophet. But believe it or not, we have some people who say that this is not true. And they also argue about the names of the chapters. The names of the chapters of the Quran are signifiers that symbolize or endorse the higher aims. The interpretation of this device is a tool of the higher aim-based interpreter. Okay? What does that mean? Listen to what one of the early Quran interpreters said. He said, after completing 10 years in authoring my book, and only when I am about to explain chapter Surah Saba, I discovered that the higher aims of the chapters are hidden in their names. For example, chapter El-Fatiha. El-Fatiha was named the mother of the book, el-Kitab. Why was it named el-Kitab? Because it outlines the meanings of the Quran and the rest of the Quran details, and it explains its implications. So, you know, the names of the chapter, y'all need to remember this, the names of the chapter really are a clue as to what Allah is getting ready to talk about. And this is something that I think Dr. Jabriel emphasized too when he was doing his series on the rights of spouses in Islam. You know, the hidden names of the chapter, they become a clue as to what this chapter is about. And this theory is built on a firm acceptance that the surah names are revealed by the prophet in order, and they are not revealed, put together based on opinion. This is what some Muslims are saying, guys, believe it or not. You got some people who call themselves Muslims, they're Murjia. This is why I tell y'all, be careful of these people that y'all listen to. They believe that the surah names were not revealed by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in order. But so we have to really, really be careful. Okay? So what's the correct theory? The correct view? Well, it's what the people of the Sunnah say. All the people who have the excuse me. Yeah, okay, wait a minute. Here's somebody on YouTube. Okay. Yeah, save your questions. If you got the questions, just text it to me like this brother here just did, and I'll get to it at the end. I'm sorry. Yeah, but thank you. That's Rumble. Okay, yeah, Rumble, just send your questions like he did. In fact, take their questions for them, brother. And then you can text me since you got my number. I don't know how he got my number, but he got it. Okay. But anyway, the people of the Sunnah who have the correct understanding, and that understanding is based on an understanding of the companions, they all believe that the divinity of the Quran and its authenticity is an issue beyond any doubt, as it has been proven through many textual and intellectual pieces of evidence. Okay? Other books are claimed to be divinely revealed when they're not. For example, the Bible. The Bible doesn't exist. We all know that as Muslims, because Allah says whenever he sent a book of revelation, he destroyed the previous book, because that new book of revelation replaced what came before it. So there is no Bible on this planet today. Allah destroyed the Bible before he sent down the Quran. Okay, so what you have as the Bible today is written by man, as Dr. McBride has proven in his series. You know, these men like Paul, who never even met Jesus. Okay, so these other books are not divinely revealed. Okay, but the Quran is, and no other book can claim that. And because the Quran, its verses, its chapters, its surahs are put in the order they are as a result of revelation, you know, this is what separates it. This is a miracle in and of itself. And it's what separates it from all these other man-made books. And also another proof that the Quran is divine, that it came from Allah. It's the words of Allah, not the creation of Allah. It's the words of Allah, is because Muslims have memorized those same surahs, those same words over and over and over again throughout the centuries. Okay? Now, in regards to the names of the chapters, the majority of the scholars all agree that the names of the chapters are based on the revelation. What does that mean? That means that Allah sent the angel Jabriel down with the names of the chapters to the prophet, who told the companions about them. This is important, guys. I want you brothers and sisters to remember this. When Allah sent the revelation, it was sent through the angel Jabriel, alayhi salam. And not only did Jabriel convey the words of Allah to the prophet, but also the name of the chapters. The name of the chapters. And then the prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would call upon his scribes. He had 4 scribes. And he would narrate to them what Jabriel told him, and they would write it down, because our prophet couldn't read or write. So this is the correct answer. The chapters were not made up by man. They weren't made up by Abu Bakr, as some people say. They weren't made up by Uthman. May Allah be pleased with them both, as some people say. The chapter names were revealed by Allah through Jabriel to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. We have a hadith, whereas one of the companions said that he heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say that the Quran will be brought forward on the day of judgment, as will its people who used to act in accordance with it. And the 2 chapters that will be leading the people is Al-Baqarah and Al-Ali Imran. That's the proof right there, that hadith, that the same chapters exist. Al-Baqarah is still Al-Baqarah. We didn't rename it anything else. Ali Imran is still Ali Imran. It hasn't been named anything else. Okay? So that's proof that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam received the names of the chapters through the angel Jabriel. Okay? This ain't something that happened after him. We also have another hadith, which is more proof that not only did the angel Jabriel bring the revelation, but the chapter names too. It's this one from Ibn Masud. May Allah be pleased with him. Ibn Masud said, the chapter of Bani Israel, and the chapter of the cave, and Maryam, and Taha, and the chapter of the prophets are among my first earnings and are my old property. That hadith there shows that those were the names of those chapters. Those names have not changed. They're still here. So how can someone say that Abu Bakr or Umar or Uthman or some other Tom, Dick, and Jerry gave the Quranic chapters their names? The names were the same then, during the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as they are today. And those names were based on the revelation from Allah. Does everybody understand that? You have to understand this. You cannot be one of those Murji'ah or one of those other deviant groups that argue this. Remember, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent his uncle Jafar to talk to the King Negus of Abyssinia, what did he do? He recited to him the chapter Maryam, the chapter of Mary. That was the same then. That was the name. Surah Maryam. That was its name. So that these are all proofs that the names came with the revelation. Okay, the chapter names. Now I'm trying to keep this simple. Does this make sense? Let me stop right here and pause for a second so I can answer the brother's question. So did I just answer that for you? For the brother on Rumble? Okay, he said, yes, it's clear. So he said it was confusing in the book. Okay, he said he was confused, that he couldn't understand what the book was saying, but now it makes sense. Yes, that's the point. That's the point for you guys, to every one of us, to remember the name of the chapters were sent down by Allah through the angel Jabriel, through his revelations to the prophet. These names were not made up after him. These are the chapters names that we have today are the same names that existed then. Write that down. Do you got it, brothers? Okay. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, and by the way, I want y'all to understand this. Some of the chapters have multiple names. You all know that. For example, Al-Fatiha. Fatiha is also known as the 10 most recited verses. Another name it has is the mother of the Quran. Okay. Also the Surah Ashar. It's also, that's the 94th chapter. It's also called Al-Inshira and Alam Nashra, because it repeats over Alam Nashra. Also, there's different, some of the chapters of the Quran may have more than one name, but they're all the same. And those different names they call it were always in effect. Okay? So everybody understand that. I want you brothers to screenshot this. Yeah, I rewrote that to make that simpler. Let me make sure that they follow. What about you guys in Zoom? Are you guys following too? Did I make this simpler for too? Because evidently what Edward and brother Vance is saying, that in the book it was difficult to understand that. Is this clear, people in Zoom?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, I don't, because they said it was confusing. Right. Yeah, so there's different, like you say, like I said, the Fatiha. The Fatiha is called the 10 most often recited verses. Why? Because there's no prayer without it. But even the other names that a chapter may have, those other names are well known. We all know what they are. And they were called the same thing even in the time of the prophet. So that's what you guys need to remember. And also, we can identify other names of the chapters by looking into specialized books. But the fact remains that these names were revealed to the prophet, and he chose from among them specific names to use more frequently. You will see these names mentioned in hadiths, many hadiths, and they're well known to us. Remember, guys, like I was telling you guys earlier, Allah protected this religion for us. Islam is protected. Okay, the Sunnah is protected. The Quran is protected. Can't nobody change this religion.